I'm very glad that we have audio before we actually need to have audio.
Yeah, that was the plan. I'm like, well, let's make sure it's working before we.
Absolutely. So I think the key question is, what are we all drinking? Craig.
So I guess I'll kick it off. So I am drinking a van full of weirdos juicy IPA.
I'm always astounded by the names of what you actually drink. And how is a van full of weirdos?
It's pretty good. I'm a little disappointed it's not as good as the name, but it's still pretty good.
Hmm. Brent.
In honor of you, James, I am drinking a Jackson Triggs Malbec.
Excellent. And how about you, Chris?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm not drinking is the beer that Brett owes me for beating him. I think that's probably somewhere on a courier ship on the way down the West Coast. But in the meantime, I've got a nice recovery whiskey. It's an Eagle Rare single barrel pick from my friends down the road at Fernside Bar that just landed this past week. So,
My God, he's getting free advertising in there as well. I have for like second week in a row, not a bottle of Malbec. It is a Terra di Chieti. I have no idea what grape it is, but it is quite tasty. Gonna ruin my reputation here, I think.
I think you can drink different things occasionally, James.
But it's 2 weeks in a row, Craig. I'm definitely going to have a Malbec next week. I will see what I can find and see if I can find one with like a slightly interesting name. Although, other than the I Heart Malbec, I haven't seen too many of them. Um, but I guess we should probably move on to Herd Summer Racing League because of this weekend in Herd Summer Racing League, we have 2 laps of the Yorkshire or Harrogate UCI course, totaling 28 kilometres in length with 492 metres of climbing. Our racers will take on the Yorkshire KOM and Yorkshire Sprint as they try to set the best times on both laps in the fastest through segment efforts with bonus points available on the finish line. We've already asked some questions, but Brent and Chris are both joining us tonight for the first time, and they've actually raced this already. Guys, how was it?
Tougher for me than Chris.
terrible. It was miserable. Absolutely miserable. Felt like more meters of climbing than that, James, to be honest. Might want to check the math.
I think with this route, it always does, and it's one of those funny ones where you're basically either doing VO2 or you're not pedaling at all. Chris, you had a fantastic race tonight. What were your tactics, just to try and hang with the front as long as you can, or?
Yeah, thank you. Hang with the front and hang with the front in the right spot too. Just figuring out, I'm a bit more blessed with static downforce, and on this course you're either going up, which slows me down, or you're descending, which speeds me up. So I have to be kind of near the front-ish, nose out of the wind, but on these long slogs of ascents. And then everybody will kind of roll past me a little bit. I'll be at the tail end of when we get to the summit of something, and then that will allow me to roll out to the front of the group and just lather, rinse, and repeat that same sort of strategy. And it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say. I think he had an 8th place in the end, and I definitely saw like a couple of 5th places on the segments as well. I think you and Brent were together for definitely the first lap, and then you ceremoniously dropped him on the second climb, I believe. Brent, how was that for you?
Yeah, tough. I tried to put a little more sting in the legs on the first climb, so that like it went off fast, like every Zwift race. But then on this course, that first, like you turn right into a climb that goes like kind of between 2 and 5% for about 2.5 kilometers. So you don't like it usually goes for a minute and then it settles in. And this one went fast right till the edge of that first climb, I would say. Wouldn't you, Chris?
Yeah, agreed. No, well, that was mostly your fault. You were driving the front of it.
Yeah, well, it was I was in, and then when we got to the steeper bit, I thought I'd need to go a little faster and see if I could scrape some of the sprintier guys off the back, because I know I can't quite take the KOMs, but if I can knock some of the sprintier guys off or slow them down, then maybe I can get into the top 5 on the sprints. But unfortunately, it just ended up me being too tired by the second KOM and I fell off the back. So
what I saw was the fast start was fast, but didn't last as long as the normal fast start because it went into that climb, and it looked like the climb up what I think is Otley Road was probably 4.5 watts per kilo for pretty much the whole thing.
sounds pretty close. That's where I would have been.
Yeah, so for an unclassified segment, that's pretty ouchy.
Yeah.
And so after we get over Otley Road, you've then got the right hand turn, which then you've got a little bit more climbing, so probably about a 2 or 3% before you go down past Potback Wall. And Chris, I think I saw you hit about 97 kph.
Maybe my eyes weren't really working at that point after that climb. So,
So
quite
after you get down Potback Wall, you've got a little bit of gradual gradient before you turn right again, and then another right-hand turn before you go downhill before the Yorkshire KOM, and that's enough. The downhill before the com is another opportunity to super tuck. So we haven't touched on that yet. But, you've obviously got super tuck down past Potback Wall, and then you've got super tuck after that second right-hand turn before the KOM, and then all hell breaks loose. Chris, I think your second com was your faster one, and I saw you holding sort of like 450 watts for definitely the first half of the hill. What was your plan? Did you have like any sort of numbers in mind, or were you just trying to follow the people in front?
I was just trying to follow wheels. Yeah, actually, on the second KOM on the lead-in, I found myself in a position I didn't want to be in, thanks to the super tuck and my extra kilos. I kind of had my nose out in the front, which I didn't want to do because we're going for fastest time, right? So I wanted to be towards the back, drafting as much as I can, and then just passing people and knowing that everybody that I was passing, I was a faster time then. But I found myself on the front, so I actually I gave it a little kick to get out of the super tuck and try to slow myself down before that KOM start line, and try to drop back in the group a little bit, which I think it worked a little bit. But yeah, it was just trying to follow wheels. Anybody who went past, just trying to stick on, and it worked. So
just before the race, Brent, we were talking about the Mike Buggy effort. Why don't you just tell us a little bit of what that was and when that happened?
Yeah, so when we were doing this course in the Zwift Racing League, Mike Buggy, who was on the herd of Blazing Bidets, did basically a sprint effort down the last 200 meters of the climb, or maybe a little less than that, and then held that through the bottom as it turned up, and then blasted through the first bit of the uphill and gapped basically the whole field to kind of get everyone else out of the wind. So he was solo way off the front, and he didn't quite hold it all the way to first place, all the way to the front. A couple of the super strong later guys caught him, but definitely managed to get himself a couple places. So I tried that today. I had the feather going down the hill, so I hammered it for the last little bit down the hill, and then hit my feather at the bottom and tried to go up. But the either I'm not as fast a sprinter as Mike, or the field knew it was coming, because I never really shook kind of the next 2 or 3 guys. They managed to stick with me right on my wheels. We went up, and with like the speed you're going, you're still like 50 kilometers an hour for the first like 20 or 30 seconds up that climb. Maybe not quite that long, but for a good long ways at the climb, the speed is so high that you're still super draftable. So I just didn't shake anyone, and then probably got a bit burned, although I still got to get like top 10 on the KOM, which is probably about where I'd expect ultimately anyway.
Yeah, so I think Mike's got a 1,1300 watt sprint on him, so I wouldn't be feeling even a tiny bit ashamed by not being able to keep up with that. So we're over the top of the KOM. We've gone down the KOM, then we're turning left over a roundabout, and then we've got the sort of 10% spiky bit. So you've got another climb before the sprint, and that peaks at about 10%, probably averages, I guess, probably 6-7%. And then you turn right onto the sprint. Guys, how did you find the sprint tonight?
thought it was a little pedestrian, I guess, compared to some of them. Like they were fast, but not as cutthroat as I've seen. And people went late. I thought people would go
Mhm.
earlier because it's a shorter sprint, but there was really no jump until into the sprint, I would say, past the corner.
I think certainly watching Chris. I think Chris, your first sprint was probably the first half was, I guess, about 300-400 watts, and then you went for it in the second half.
Yeah, this one always, it just seems a little bit longer when you're actually doing it than the 250 that I've got on the race sheet. I don't know if it's the turns or not being able to see the banner or the start line, or if it was just a function of nobody else, like Brent said, nobody else was going for it. So trying to stay in the draft as long as I can and then just give it a little punch. But I agree. In a perfect world, everybody is at speed before you make that right hand turn and hit the line, right? But that just wasn't the case. So tried to stay in the draft and give it a little kick.
I think it's slightly uphill as well, which is why it always feels a bit longer than 250 meters. But after the sprint, we've got the rest of the mini loop, which is fairly rolling. But there's a couple of 6% bits in there, and then you get back down to a roundabout, turn left, a little bit of downhill, and then you turn right, and then you've got the ramp up towards the start-finish straight. And in terms of the second lap, you've almost got like two sprints because you're sprinting up that hill, and then you're still 500 meters away from the finish line. So you can't sprint the whole way unless your name's Orjan Lovedale. So you basically got to sprint up a hill, and then you're sort of sitting in, trying to draft for maybe another sort of 5-10 seconds, then sprinting again. Does that sound about right?
Yep, that's how it goes at the end of that lap.
Yeah, and even the flat to the finish line isn't even a flat, right? So you're still just fighting the whole way to the line, and it just goes on forever.
Yeah, it's like 2 to 3%, even when it flattens out at the top of that ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
So-
say so this direction, that finish is absolutely brutal. That hill is just kind of a little bit too far to go right from there. So then it just ends up into a big schmozzle, which is also fun because there's always the people that try to go from the bottom of the hill that end up getting overrun because anyway, it's an interesting finish.
Yeah, I think if you know your legs and know how you respond in that situation, you don't have to mark everybody that goes because they're going to come back. Nobody can survive that. So just slot in where you can and know your efforts.
Yeah, count on it taking about 50% longer. If you usually like to send your, full speed at 200, wait till 150. If you usually like to send it 300, wait till 200 because it's gonna be that much longer to get to the finish than where you think it's gonna be.
I think my experience of this course, last time we ZRL, I very, very, very nearly held the front group up the Yorkshire KOM, but missed out by about 2 seconds. They flew away from me, and I was on my own. There's about a group of 5 behind me. They all flew past me going downhill, and then there was a group behind about 10 seconds that included Michael Bowser. And I got to the start-finish straight. Bowser was about 10 seconds behind, and he, to this day, maintains that he was trying to just make sure no one caught up with me, yet he was doing 10 watts a kilo. And in the end, I crossed the line about half a second in front of him, and it was very, very nearly handbags at dawn. But anyway, so that's the first lap. The second lap is even harder. We've obviously covered everything that happens on that lap, but yeah,
The
the
one
second
thing I
lap.
will say is that on the second lap, people tend to not push nearly so hard on Otley on that first 3% ramp, because I mean which is good, but that's what I've always found. I've never found anybody really attack at that point in a race where there's points for the KOM anyway.
That was our race too. Like we were down to 13 by the time we hit the end of the lap, and no one really attacked off the front on Otley. Like it was pretty tame.
Yeah, it looked relatively steady on the second lap, and then obviously all hell broke loose on the second KOM. And the second sprint was, I guess, relatively tame. It didn't seem to be particularly fast. And then obviously you have the sprint to the line. But yeah, no, great race, Chris. Brent, you did pretty well as well. So eight for Chris, 10 for Brent. All good points for Herd.
Good stuff.
And after today, we've obviously got HSRL Racing League today, tomorrow, and Sunday. But on Sunday and Monday, we've got the Herd of Mountain Goats, which this weekend will be the Muir and the Mountains routes, which is definitely not. I've written down 914 meters. That sounds a bit high, but it might be right. After that, and we'll come back to this shortly, we have a Stampede on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, which is 6 laps of fan flats. Then on Tuesday, we have the Herd Series, which will be a single lap of figure 8, and it's the first of our points races. So points are available on the forward and reverse KOM and the forward and reverse sprint. And then we'll move on to the highly contested, heavy sarcasm, bullseye event, which will have 4 laps of the Champs-Élysées route. Going back to the Stampede, so was that a big sigh? I didn't quite hear who that big sigh came from.
Oh, that was Craig, and yeah, Champs-Élysées. I've had a couple really good races there, but I think of all the races there, actually, it might only be one really good race I've had on Champs-Élysées. That's so easy to get wrong.
I've also had one very good race on Champs-Élysées and probably about 8 or 9 really, really bad ones. Champs-Élysées was my first race in Category C where I actually managed to hold the front of the group until the end of the race.
Nice.
But
Is the lap banner on Champs at the lap banner for this bullseye, or is it the one at the sprint on the uphill?
It's lap banner.
Okay, that's a little more not as exciting as the uphill sprint.
Oh, believe me, it'll still be quite painful.
Oh, I've done it. I understand. It is. Well, it's a bullseye.
Yeah.
Your sprint intervals in.
So coming back to the Stampede, so we've done 6 races so far, and Brent and I have done every single one of those 6 races on a Monday. Brent is beating me 4-2. I was very grateful for a win last week with the Petty Com turning up at the right time. But unfortunately, this week we have fan flats. Brent, I think my money is probably on you this week. Even if I can hold 4-0 around the whole thing, I think your watts are definitely going to outdo me this time around.
Yeah, it'll be tougher for you this week. How many laps is it a fan? Like, what's the total kilometers?
It's 6 laps, which will take us to about 38, 39k.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess it's a bit of an endurance contest, really. None of us are going to catch Kev on this one. I think he's got
the
power and the distance, that guy.
Yeah.
I think Kev's probably got about 2 or 3 minutes on us this time around.
So I actually did the Stampede for the first time in a long time on Monday, and yeah, I was way behind the times of you guys, but I definitely went out way too fast.
I watched some of your video, Craig. you looked distraught there on parts of the KOM.
I was done like dinner by the time we hit the KOM. So I actually had a plan. So my plan was to go a little too fast and then to hammer the aqueduct, but then to deliberately slow down and recover and hammer the KOM. I forgot to slow down. And just everything.
I've heard this before. This sounds a lot like one of your Bologna plans.
It's yeah. So when I've executed this type of plan, it can go really well. But yeah, no, I forgot to slow down, didn't recover, and was absolutely toast for the KOM.
My plan was so my FTP I think is about 3.92. My plan was four flat on the flats. Do something relatively sensible on the aqueduct, and then kick as hard as I possibly could on the KOM. I So Brent always goes off fast, and I'm never going to like match his pace on the first probably 10 kilometers of any flat race. But we met each other. I think it was either just before or just after the aqueduct, and then we hit Pettycom, and I was holding I think between 4.5 and 5, and Brent was with me for I think the first two or three hairpins, and I was absolutely certain that I wasn't going to drop him. And then all of a sudden, I saw he was like 5-10 meters back, and that was pretty much the time I was going to just take it easy for a bit because I didn't think I could drop him. And then I saw him drop a little bit, and that was the incentive I needed to just really kick as hard as I possibly could for the rest of the climb. Brent, if you'd stayed with me then, I would have slowed down.
There you go.
Yeah, but
Give me lots of good intel, James.
it all happened at the right time, and then I was just able to kick on a bit further and open up a bit of a gap before the top. But I think this time around with 6 laps of fan flats, I'm really going to struggle to stay with you. So I think on a good day I might come fourth, and I'm really hoping for a good day. But we'll see how it pans out. Or
Yeah, I think
fans
it'll be
out.
interesting to see how much. So, like this, there's a few of us who race this time slot every week or almost every week, and there's like a lot of different body morphologies in terms of like the results and stuff you see at the end. And so it'll be interesting. You know, most of the ones we've had so far have had one good climb in them, varying lengths, but this I think is the flattest one we've done out of these first 6 races. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes the
I
tactics.
I can't remember his surname. There's a guy called Peter who comes every Monday,
Yep.
and he often starts fast. And I think it took me about 15k to catch up with him last Monday. I think this could be a good race for him as well, and I think I will struggle to beat him. So yeah, so I think Peter's in for a good round. I think what's great about Monday Stampede is it's the same guys every single week. So we've got you, me, Peter, Kev, Shifty Gardner. We've got Gary Raven, Hugh Shepherd, Ernst Leckies is there as well. So generally we've got like probably 7 or 8 people that race it week in, week out, and it's really, really good to see. And we're going to have to mention Alex Cooper because he absolutely flew last week. But on a flat course, he'll probably do like 4.4, 4.5. But at his weight, is that going to be enough to podium? And we will find out on Monday. So looking forward to seeing how the results all pan out.
Yep.
So I haven't done a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just said I agree with all that.
Speaking from my perspective, I haven't done a Stampede or a Bullseye in quite some time, so I'm going to have to duck into both of those events just to kind of reacquaint the legs with that format ahead of the Herd Club Championships. But I'm looking ahead at the schedule, and it looks like James has changed every route for that week to Ventop, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. Would it do Bullseye?
So we may as well talk about it now, actually. So Herd Club Championship. I wanted that week to be Event Up week, just because it's a really, really good effort. So we've got Ventop, we've got Volcano Climb After Party in the Stampede, got Queen's Highway in the Bullseye. It was originally going to be 3 laps of London Loop in the Summer Racing League, but because of the way that there's a bit of a delay getting the Mercury Islands segments involved, we actually have 3 laps of chain jumper, which I think will actually be a really, really good course. Bike selection is key because the first half is tarmac, second half is gravel. You've got 2 KOMs per lap and a sprint per lap. So basically, Club Championship's going to be chain jumper, Ventop, Volcano After Party, and 8 laps of Queen's Highway. So I think it's going to be quite special.
That's one word for it.
Quite special in Jamesish generally translates to extremely painful and want to die.
I can't believe it's on a Ventop week, James.
Well, I deliberately chose the week it was going to be Ventop, so I don't even know why you're surprised, Craig.
I mean, Muir in the Mountain is such a nice course, or you've got Innsbruck UCI in the Mountain Goats as well. Those are much better courses.
But they are much nicer courses, but I wanted it to be challenging, and Ventop is definitely the most challenging climb, albeit the most boring, dull. Oh my god, I want to kill myself climb, but it's the toughest of a lot.
So, James, I think this plays into what Steve and I were talking about last week, where Ventop, I think if it's the herd championships, if it's the club championships, I think it's going to be really interesting because people are going to be really engaged and talking to each other. The same as, we were and Dirt was, and in that final race for HSRL 3. So I think this has the potential to go really well, but it definitely doesn't favor me.
I don't think it favors many people. Anyone that's listening, if you are listening and you are racing, get on Discord for your races because it helps your teammates so much. I don't even know if Chris was listening to me tonight, but I was like saying, okay, kick now, and that's a really, really good climb. You're doing so well. It will really, really help your teammates if you're there on Discord and you can just say, nearly there, 500 meters to go, and that sort of stuff. And it's great for team tactics as well. But especially on something as long and horrid as Ventop. And let's be fair, we're talking like probably a 2-hour climb in D, maybe slightly longer. I think when I did double Ventop, I did 2.5 watts a kilo, and it's like 2 hours 10 minutes per climb. It's long, it's horrible, it's nothing about it is pleasant apart from the one downhill segment you have, which happens fairly early on. Get on Discord, cheer your teammates on, help each other through it because it makes such a difference. And
it really did, James. Yeah.
If you've got someone else there who's doing the same thing that you are, and they're just saying, "We've got 5 kilometers to go. Let's do it." That really, really, really help anyone that's on the same channel. So if you're looking to do the club championship, which is from the 3rd of September onwards, get on Discord. You will help every single one of your teammates by just being on there. So
yeah, having that voice in my ear, James, is really helpful. And then agreed, the more folks we have on there across multiple categories, you can talk and kind of game plan. Like, we're catching your group, spin up, hop on. You can bridge people back. There's nothing bad about having extra voices on Discord to chat and commiserate. So
yeah,
I would echo that as well.
So, James, I can't remember exactly what race it was, but I remember you being on Discord and a few other guys. It was a race in France, and I know you and I and a few other guys were kind of trying to Bowser at the back of a big group, but there were people pushing the group too, and it was.
I remember this, yeah.
Yeah.
You called out a gap that I hadn't seen, and that allowed me to push up the power to get back onto the group, and that was a massive help.
Yeah. There you go.
And yeah, so it's that kind of thing where it's a, you can, do those little things like you would do if you had a radio in a real race. Not that I've ever been in a real road race with a radio, but those little things about what's happening in the race, that can really help each other without, being a detriment to yourself. So I think that's it makes it more fun. You're also, and I mean, we've in Zwift Racing League especially, I've definitely, kind of just at the last second realized nobody else is going for the sprint and said, hey, come on, I'm going to lead you out. I'm going now. And yeah, so a teammate gets first and I end up with third or fourth in the sprint because of that kind of quick call, which you can't do typing. So yeah, just
on that note, I seem to recall being on the same team as you and Orjan basically saying, yeah, I feel like going at like 700 meters to go, and you were like, that's a bit far, and then Orjan going probably 500, and you guys taking, I think, first and second.
I think we were first and third. I think Orjan got the win and I was third. So that one. So Orjan said, and it was the two of us in a group of 4 or 5 at the front, and so I was trying to line up. Okay, what are we gonna do? When do you want to go? Because he's a better sprinter. I said, I'll lead you a little bit if I can. So I want to go at 500. I said, I can't do that. But yeah, and everybody else in the race laughed at that. But no, it was good, and yeah. So funny enough, the guy who came second ended up going before Orjan, and then the two of us covered it. I was able to get past him a little bit, but then he came back at me. So anyway, really good result, and that was actually one of the best Zwift races I've had. Was that one with Orjan and I playing all those primes on Richmond Reverse in Zwift Racing League.
Yeah, but, and I think the fact that we were all on Discord really helped you guys get that P1 and P3. Because if Orjan had just gone and you weren't expecting it, you might not have been able to react. But because you knew that he was going to do it, you were able to give him a bit of a lead out and get your third place.
Yeah, no, it definitely works much better. And so not being on Discord, but just happening to go at the same time. Mark, John, and I have done that, and together broken away from the group we were with on finishes before as well. And just what you can do by timing a sprint together is pretty impressive on how fast you can drop a group.
My best time on Ventop ever was the first round of the first half of the first round of Mountain Goats, and Brian O'Connor and I did Ventop together on Discord, the two of us the whole time, and I don't think either one of us would have been within 30 seconds or a minute of our time if it wasn't for both of us pushing each other on. Like, he was 2 or 3 minutes up the road from me at least, but you're like, oh, I'm this close to the end, and the guy's telling you, you can do it, go get it, get that next guy in front of you, and it was like, for 90 minutes of pure hell that is Ventop, it was the pretty fun 90 minutes of hell.
Yeah, it's not pleasant at all.
So I think we've sold Discord quite a lot here, but what we did mention is a lot about Zwift Racing League. And so if we're going to talk about ZRL, people have started asking about ZRL, and I think just to cover that, since we've covered it several times in chats and comments, we're going to put out a sign up. It's going to be a Google form, same as before. We've been talking with Claire, and I think we're going to try and do one common sign up for the women's teams and the mixed teams, because people signing up for both was one of the major confusions last season. And that's going to come out pretty soon. But first thing, we don't know what the categories are going to look like. Whether there's going to be...
I think, sorry, Craig.
Yeah.
I think we do know it's going to be A, B, C, D. It's going to be Swift Power categories. I think the thing that we don't know is what the time zones are going to be, because there are going to be 3 different time zone changes over the course of this racing league. So, which is going to present challenges because it's that time of year. Daylight savings, hooray. But it is going to be A, B, C, D. So if you are a B rider and you think you are going to upgrade to A in the next few weeks, enter A. If you're a C and you think you're going to upgrade to B, enter B. To avoid disappointment. But like Craig says, hopefully by the end of this weekend, we will have a post out to collect all your details. And as Craig says, that there's been a couple of people expressing interest. So wait for the post. We will put out a Google form to ask you things like what's your name, what's your Zwift ID, and if you have raced if you've raced in ZRL before, which team you raced in. So really, really, really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great season. I think we're going to have an enormous amount of herd teams. But yeah, I think it's going to be really good. Sorry, Craig, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was pretty much it. I think just for everybody's knowledge, there's kind of the two biggest things we're looking at when we're putting together the teams are, one, keeping people together that have raced before, because you do get to know the people you're racing with. So if people want to stay together, that's valid. But also trying to keep the teams fairly close in power, because especially in the team time trial weeks, it's a lot more fun if you're all close in power.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I foolishly upgraded myself to A, but no, sorry, I was a B, almost A, and I did a team time trial with Mark John's team, thinking, oh yeah, this will be a bit easier, and Ben had to do 4.0 just to hang on. But very, very, very much looking forward to doing ZRL in one of our B teams. And Craig, I know you said that you probably won't be able to, but hopefully you will. And we are eagerly awaiting to find out what all the time zones are going to be, what times people can race at, and how many people we're going to have entering. And I think we're going to have some many, many, many great ladies teams as well, which I'm really, really, really pleased about. Chris and Brent, which teams did you enter last time around?
Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, so I mean, Chris and I are, I think, we'll call it 3 seasoned veterans of the herd of blazing bidets. We've raced together 3 of these ZRLs together, and we have just the funnest time. It's usually we get, probably I'd say, like, we usually have about a core group of 4 or 5 of us that are like, 7 of the 8 races together, and then we fill in around it. But we get on Discord, we have a good laugh about it. One season we were super competitive. Literally the last race of the season, we needed to finish first to take out the other guys, and we came in second. We finished like 1 point behind them for the whole series. The next time around, we were in a much tougher. This is when they did the split down to like when the B1s and stuff got a lot more split out. So we ended up in the top B1 division, and we weren't quite as competitive, but we still had lots of fun. So
that's an interesting point, because last time round they seeded teams before the series started, whereas this time round there are going to be teams placed into A division, and there's going to be 2 qualifying races. So you might see people stay in the same division and other teams being promoted or relegated, rather than automatic placing in various different divisions. So my Minions team, we were placed in A2, which might have had something to do with the fact that it was Bologna in the Head Summer Racing League the weekend before, and I did 4.4 watts per kilo, and as did a few of the other minion riders. So rather than placing people on their previous couple of efforts, they're going to base it on the two qualifying races. So there'll be one TCT, one points race. So hopefully that'll result in a fairer division, and look forward to seeing how it goes. Craig, your thoughts?
No, yeah, absolutely, and I'm interested to see how they apply the results of those two races, or how they use the results of those two races to get into the promotion relegation. So, I think that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think I got one race in with the bidets in season one, but always a fun group.
Yeah, I got one race in with Mark John's team, which was really, really fun. And I didn't feel like I was going to be in like the bottom 0.5% in the results. I think
For anyone who's not clear, you need to Google why is a bidet a horse? Because a bidet is a horse.
A bidet is a horse.
Yeah, answer a lot of questions about that.
It was a horse. It was a
week.
horse once upon a time. I
That's
think
right.
that word dropped out of use in the French language a few hundred years ago. But yes, it was a horse.
fair enough.
No, it's still in the language, Craig. It's still there.
We're bringing it back if not.
So the final thing in our podcast is things that annoyed us about Zwift. Craig, I don't have anything. Zwift hasn't annoyed me, other than the fact my 2-hour workout on Tuesday was extremely painful. But I don't think that was Zwift's fault. Has anything annoyed you about Zwift this week?
Well, so I guess it's not really Zwift as an entity or company's fault, but Becca tried to kill me. So Becca shared a workout with me, and I attempted to do it, and she didn't tell me beforehand that she had attempted to do this workout before and failed multiple times. So yeah, it was incredibly difficult, and I'm not sure it's possible for anyone, to be completely honest.
So this workout is basically 30 seconds of I think 450 watts with 15-second recovery, again times 8.
Well, not quite. So it is 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off. So I think the first two sprints for me were at 5:45, and then they went down from there. But it was 4 sets of 10 30-second sprints with 15 seconds between, and I think it was only like, it was less than 3 minutes between sets. I don't think this is a possible workout.
I've done workouts like this before, and I got about halfway through before I just quit out.
Were you doing it in erg mode, like ergometer mode, Craig?
I tried it. So I did the first set in erg mode. I skipped the second and third sets because I was dead after basically hitting the spiral of death 2 or 3 times in the first set, and then I did the last set in with erg mode off.
I just don't think you can. I know the plan is to do it in erg mode, but I don't think you can, because it generally takes probably 5 seconds, maybe 5 to 10 seconds to bring the resistance up to what you need it to be. I think workouts like that, you have to do the whole thing with erg mode off.
Yeah, up wasn't the problem. It was taking 5 to 10 seconds to come down when it was 15 seconds off.
Yeah.
Yeah, erg mode on those short recoveries. Like back when I was doing training for different stuff, I did a bunch of Sufferfest stuff, and I always found that erg mode recovery is like almost no recovery, because by the time you it adjusts everything back to like you being at 100 or 150 watts, whatever your recovery pace is, it's just like you're as tired from getting the stupid cadence back as you are before the next repeat comes back around.
Yeah. So thank you. You guys managed to turn this into actually being about Zwift and erg mode as opposed to just Becca trying to kill me in, some sort of weird attempted murder by workout thing.
To be fair, she's been trying to kill herself at the same time. But yeah, no, I think like workouts like that, you have to do it with erg mode off, because you've got the delay for firstly the power ramping up and then it ramping down. Brent, has Zwift annoyed you in any way this week?
The only thing that's been bothering me, including today during our race, was I'm getting like a bunch of frame rate drops, which like I run Zwift in 720p on a PC with an i5 Intel and a GTX 1650 graphics card, and that should not be happening. So I don't know if I've got background stuff or there's something in the update, but like I've had it a few times. I've had it when there's weird sun effects coming through the trees, and I've had it when there's some rain, but then today, like there was nothing on the course and I was getting frame rate drops. So that was annoying me.
Is your computer plugged in? I know that's been a problem for you in the past.
Yes, my computer was plugged in, Chris. I can't even blame it on that today.
All right. Just asking.
Fair enough.
That's a weird one.
Yep.
And Chris, has Zwift annoyed you in any way this week at all?
It seems like they've got that Strava link issue fixed. Am I correct in thinking that? Anybody else having that issue anymore?
I think that was only iOS, but I believe there was a patch last week that fixed it.
Well, the fact that it was ever an issue to begin with, I guess there's residual irritation there. But that seemed to... I'm more irritated with the people on the WTRL forums that are complaining. But that's always going to be a thing, and that's not Zwift's problem. But it's not a herd problem either, right? We're all pretty respectful and appreciative for the work that everybody puts into this on their own time and dime. But I could live without people on the WTRL forums complaining about seating issues and category and AutoCAT and things that in the grand scheme of things are not a problem. But again, not a problem. But...
I've left that forum at least twice now, just for those reasons. I think Herd and Herd Racing League are massively supportive and a really, really nice place to be. Whereas if you look at Zwift Racing and the Zwift Racing League forums, it's not so much. Personally, I think WTRL need to have someone who's permanently on that forum to be able to address various issues. I think they do a good job periodically, but I think more could be done.
Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, James, you know how many people are on how much to keep the Herd and Herd Racing League the way it is. So, I mean, we've got a pretty good group and there isn't a lot of moderation required, but when it's always reacted to quickly when something does come up. So if you don't have that group of people to engage, it's really tough to keep things positive.
Yeah, and just to like clarify, WTRL have two people working for them. They've got Martin and Stephen. Martin is doing like 16+ hour days running their results engine, and Stephen is answering all the emails. They do not have time to be responding to various people on Facebook. So no fault of their own. The Zwift Racing League forums turned into a bit of a minefield.
Yeah,
P.S. Guys, give me a job. I'll do it happily for you.
Yeah, I'd almost call it cesspool. Like it is brutal. And if you say the wrong thing, people get all over you. So no, it is bad at times. They've increased the amount of moderation there, which is good, but yeah, definitely. I think season 2 was the worst point, but it got bad for a while.
I only follow it like when you're captaining a team. Like once in a while, things come up that you need to be sort of apprised of. So it's good to see what other people are saying and talking about, and knowing what's going on a little bit in the league, so you don't miss anything. But I also think like I don't know how much of it is sometimes just up to like culture and language issues. Like the herd is all like I don't know 95% English speaking people from like English speaking countries, and sometimes I think like people write things in WTRL, but they're writing their second language. They're the way people deal with issues in different cultures is not like the same, and when they're dealing in their second language to boot is like not the way we expect to deal with things, and so it comes across in a way, and then you get someone responding in comments about stuff, and it just spirals. So it's tough. It's a real tough thing. I don't begrudge them the time that those guys put in dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think my feeling about the ZRL Facebook group is generally just down to Martin and Stephen not having time to monitor it, and Martin definitely dips in and corrects incorrect understandings every so often in his own beautiful way. But yeah, it's not a nice place to be in.
Just like Grumpy Becca is the best Becca, Sassy Martin is the best Martin. So I'll keep showing up for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think some people have described it as snarky Martin, but it's snarky Martin doesn't come out without provocation. So no, it's pretty funny sometimes. But yeah, some of that provocation is over the top.
I think on that note, we are probably done. Massive thanks for Brent and Chris for joining Craig and myself tonight. Steve is on date night, and Becca is away attending other important things. But Chris and Brent, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here tonight. Hope you can join us again. And Brent, I look forward to being beaten by you on Monday.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. See you Monday.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.